this month's program. Do we have any first timers out there?
Yes.
Yep.
Well, introduce yourself, first timers.
I'll go. I'm Irina Rice, and I'm with a company called Ambius. We do interior and exterior live plants. Also have a hygiene product line to help businesses get back to safe environments for their people.
All right. Well, welcome, Irina.
Thank you.
Ambius is one of my first timer.
Ambius is one of my vendors
Good.
for a long time.
Good. Yes. We love you.
Any other first timers out there to our monthly program? I see Brandon and Brenna.
Come on, James, speak up. You're on mute.
Is the first timer?
Yes, James Trio, State Fair Community College.
Well, hi,
I'm the
James.
operations manager.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How about new members? Are there any new members out there? Maybe the last couple months?
Yep. Me again.
Irina again.
I'm Craig from Foley. I joined a while back. I'm in the Wichita chapter too. But
Okay.
I work for Foley Equipment, so I'm back and forth between Wichita and Kansas City, and I'm in Kansas City today.
All right.
And he's a great
Welcome,
member.
Greg.
Hi, Greg. Linda here.
Hey, Linda. I chatted you last meeting and you didn't respond.
I missed it. I'm sorry.
Are you technology challenged? Yeah, she's chatting me.
Well, welcome to our April 2021 program. It's titled "The Good, the Bad, the Ugly," discussing the ins and outs of facility management. And before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to our sponsors. They are our best friends. We have many best friends. But our diamond sponsors, of course, are Delta Innovative Services, HL Restoration, Image Flooring, and Scott Rice. And of course, there's our friends at Surf Pro and our friends at Hallmark and Garmin. Also, Johnny Marshall and Herman Miller, RUI, Construction and Disaster Services, CertaPro Painters, Spring Venture Group, and Stanger kind of wraps up our sponsors. So thank you, sponsors. We can't do it without you. And upcoming, we have on May 18th, it's titled, What Are You Doing to Reduce Your Carbon Footprint? It's a series on sustainability. So again, that's May 18th. Mark your calendars. And then in June, on June 8th, we're going to have our annual golf tournament. It's returning this year in 2021. It's going to be at the Deer Creek Golf Club. And there's sponsorships still available. So contact our golf folks. You can see the email address right there. It's going to be a fantastic time. There's foursomes and individual opportunities for members. There's our sponsorship page. So if you're still thinking about it, you only have a few days left or a few weeks left. So get on the ball and get signed up. It's going to be a great day. I don't think it's going to snow either. I hope not, at least. So moving into the program today, I'd like to Michelle Gregg. She's going to be our moderator, and then we have a collection of seasoned FMs and emerging professionals. And Michelle Gregg, who our moderator for today, has over 20 years of experience in the facility management field, 15 of those as a manager. She has worked for large private law firms such as Stinson. She worked at the H&R Block headquarters and CVS Health before her current role as facility manager with MC Realty. She's working on the UMB portfolio at MC. Michelle has a bachelor's of business in sustainable enterprise management and holds both the SFP and CFM certifications. Go Michelle. She's been part of ifmaKC since 2007 and was president of the chapter from 2014 to 2016. And so she's held a position on the IFMA Foundation's Board of Trustees for 3 years now. So so that's Michelle. She's our moderator, like I said, and our seasoned FMs, we have Nathan Guffey from Hallmark and Julie Robinson from H&R Block. And our emerging professionals are Mauricio Rodriguez. He works at Fort Leavenworth. And Zach Beall, he works at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church. So, well, thank you for coming today. At this time, I'll turn it over to our moderator, Michelle.
Well, welcome everyone. I think this should be pretty exciting. The first thing I'm going to do is ask each speaker to introduce themselves and just briefly explain your career path, how you got where you are. And we'll start there. Julie, you want to kick us off?
Hi, Julie Robinson. I'm currently at H&R Block. I have a background in interior design. That was my degree that I received from college. And then I worked in commercial real estate and facilities project management, relocation management for about 12 years, earned my CFM, and then I was recruited by H&R Block to work on the world headquarters building when it was just a hole in the ground, and worked on developing all of the furniture plans and relocation management, and teamed with some folks that are probably on this call, maybe somewhere, Becky, I don't know if I see you on there, to get everybody moved into the building. And I've been at Block since then for 16 years.
Thanks,
Nathan?
Julie. You're on mute, Nathan.
As much as I told myself I wasn't going to do that. So, but anyway, all right. I'm Nathan Guffey, and I work at Crown Center, Vice President for Corporate Facilities and Corporate Real Estate. I'm a licensed mechanical engineer. Started my engineering career at a company called Clark Richardson and Biscuit, also known as CRB. Did a lot of HVAC work in labs and clean rooms and things like that. Worked for a company called Landis and Gear back then, now known as Siemens. Came to Hallmark in 1998 and spent probably 12 years in supply chain. And I really did a variety of roles there, from a manufacturing, procurement, distribution, and logistics. And then I've been in corporate facilities for about 13 or 14 years for Hallmark in a corporate shared services role. And so, you know, learn every day still. And I've seen a few things, but I know that there are a lot more things that I was.
Forward into an automated voice messaging system. 3167772.
Curtis, can you mute?
Yep, sorry about that. I thought I was.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. Mauricio?
Hi, everybody. So I'm Mauricio Rodriguez. I'm a facility manager for the Mission Command Training Program here up at Fort Leavenworth. I've been in facility management for about 3 years. I have, you know, somewhat of have a background in maintenance. I was a maintenance mechanic for the Department of the Army, as well for Installation Management Command, and I was a maintenance manager for K-State Athletics. And I've been, you know, a facility manager here for about 2.5 years now, you know, dealing with training of commands for the Army.
Awesome. And Zach?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Zach Beall. I'm Executive Director of Operations for St. Andrew's Episcopal Church and our community center, HJ's Youth and Community Center here in the Brookside neighborhood of Kansas City. My background is I have an MBA, and prior to that, I did study business administration as well for my undergraduate work. I have kind of bounced around, starting first at churches and then managing a couple of warehouses before I moved into education, served a couple of years with national service, and then returned back to churches here at St. Andrews. So I've kind of had a full circle moment in my current position, but I really enjoy directing operations here.
Awesome. We were also going to have Tom Corso, but as I'm sure none of you have experienced, he had a facilities emergency pop up at the last minute and is unable to join us. So we will just start off here with the good. So I've got a couple of questions here, and you guys can pop in on the panel and answer as you see fit. So the first question would be, what is your most memorable experience as an FM?
Well, I can start. My most memorable experience has been working at H&R Block and completing the building project. So it was a 3 to 5 year project. I came in more towards the end where we were working on the furniture and the finishes and things like that, but nonetheless, a very large project. I think we had 11 move weekends to move everyone into the building out of 6 different buildings around town, collecting everybody together in one location. So that would be my most memorable. And I've been there long enough now that we've already refreshed the building. So new carpet, new paint, new seating, new lobby. We're hoping to get a new cafeteria facelift this year before folks come back in September. And we're doing a lot of AV upgrades and some other things around the building to get ready for our September return of our associates.
Michelle, I'll go next. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I would say my most memorable FM, I guess, event or experience was actually finding IFMA. I guess it's now 27 years ago, and I moved from a building and grounds supervisor or superintendent or whatever I might, and I found IFMA. It changed my world. I wanted to be a facility manager from that minute on. And I mean, 6 months later, we were all taking the CFM exam. And I guess, the 30 years I've been at Children International, we redid our entire facility back in 2009, 10, and 11, about a 2-year project. But I think really my biggest thing was finding IFMA and becoming a facility manager and learning all the things, all the proficiencies and all the things I learned over the 27 years as a Kansas City chapter member and a IFMA Foundation member and going to 22 world workplaces. I mean, I think my biggest FM thing is IFMA. I mean, it's been everything to me.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Sam.
Okay, so there's always a lot of things that you remember, and I won't take the high road that Julie did. Julie had great experiences, and she shared those. My memorable ones are always the catastrophic ones, and so many of you have been in IFMA for a long time and know my predecessor, Jack Tennell. And so the only reason I bring him up is because Jack Tennell actually lives in a condo on campus of Crown Center. And so I remember just finishing eating dinner one night, and I get a call from Jack, and he's laughing very hard because he just told me that the roof of the Westin Hotel had just blown off and was laying in the pool on the ground. And he was not exaggerating in any way whatsoever. So you always have big memories of the catastrophic things and certainly numerous storm stories that you have. But yeah, losing the roof of your 5-star hotel and it's laying on the ground was a big one, and just all the scrambling of folks that, whether it be people who work on the campus full time or our contract partners, coming to the rescue and buttoning up the place, making the envelope secure, was a huge memory and a great accomplishment that we were able to do it so quickly. It didn't help that my predecessor thought it was the funniest thing, because Anyway, but that's all right. Good to
Well,
have
I can imagine that phone call. How about you, Zach?
Yeah, so I have a lot of catastrophic memories, but probably the best positive memory that I have started off as definitely a negative experience too. We had when I first started, an equity property condition report prepared for us by engineers. And to anybody that's received one of those, that's quite an overwhelming packet of future work that you receive. So it basically summarizes all of the deferred maintenance projects for your building, and our building is, coming up on 100 years old. So there were numerous projects there, and reading through that was pretty overwhelming. But pretty quickly, we were able to, with the Facilities Commission, develop a plan and a strategy for taking on the ones that were most important and kind of laying a roadmap for what the next few years of remediation of those projects would be. We ended up creating what we call the Book of Common Repairs, which is kind of a play on words for those of you who are familiar with the Book of Common Prayer. And we've been executing those projects ever since we developed that document. So being able to walk around now and kind of look at all of the projects that we finished is probably one of the more rewarding aspects of my job, and definitely one of my best experiences.
That's great. It is nice to actually have some rewarding moments out there. Mauricio?
I think one of the good ones that I had is when I moved on to MCTP, where I am now. As soon as I got there, they assigned me as a contracting officer representative for a construction and upgrade project that was about 18 months behind schedule and about $250,000 over budget. And as soon as I got there, I was able to work with the contractors and the contracting officer, and was able to get the project back on schedule. And I was able to help them in finishing the project within 3 months of me arriving there.
Nice. All right, so we'll move on to our next question here. What advice do you have on finding vendor partners, keeping communication with key stakeholders? What advice would you give somebody coming into this field on partnering up?
I can go. Unless
Sure.
Julie just went off of mute. I'll let her go.
Okay. My advice is, once you find a good vendor, hold on to that vendor. It's a partnership, and over communicate. Oh, sorry, looking at my wrong answer. I'm trying to look at my answer. Just once you find that vendor partner, hang on to them. It is a relationship, and don't cry wolf. As long as you don't do that, they'll come to your rescue when you really need them.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, the thing that I would tell you that all of us get calls all the time, right? Everybody wants to do work with you. And the thing that I always have to tell people is that, I need you to demonstrate that you are a cost-effective solution, and you've got high quality service team that's there. And that we're gonna pay. We will absolutely pay fair price, but we don't want to get into a situation where we find ourselves that we're overpaying for that service. The other thing that is very important, and I don't know who else has a really strong, robust auditing group, but we do at Hallmark, and making sure that you're always keeping in mind how audit is going to perceive that relationship is something that I would tell you that I have certainly learned. And making sure that I can distinguish between why these people are our partners, and that we use them at the frequency that we do, and why we don't always go out and try somebody new, and we don't always go out and bid things. A lot of times audit doesn't understand those types of things, and it's just really important to be able to help them understand it, but then also build those strong partnerships and help those vendors come in and understand kind of what you're looking for up front.
I can go next. I would say continue to be a member of IFMA. There are a lot of great vendors here in the group, and I've met a number of the folks that we use at the church through IFMA. But beyond that, I think having a really clear statement of work that you communicate with your stakeholders and your contractors so that everybody's on the same page and working from the same documentation has been really key in making sure that everybody understands what's about to happen and who's going to do the work and what the statement of work is, so that you don't have as many change orders, hopefully, further down the road. And then using that statement of work to bring as many vendors to the table as your schedule allows, so that you can have competitive bids if you don't already have that awesome vendor. Like I think it was Julie that said, you know, keep those people close. I'd say also keep those people busy. It can be a great thing for a partnership, even just to bring them in for sort of minor repairs throughout the year so that you keep that relationship alive. And then finally, I would say work with the people that you want to work with. You know, we earlier on in my experience here at the church, I think I worked with some vendors that maybe, you know, they looked good on paper, but just there was something about it, maybe my gut feeling that they weren't going to be the best folks. And I don't do that anymore. I work with the folks that I trust and that I have good experiences with, and I continue to bring them in to take care of what's going on here at the church. So those would be sort of the three pillars of reliable vendor relationships here at the church.
Mauricio?
I think, you know, just pretty much what Zach is saying is good. Like for me, since I'm in the federal, you know, in the Department of Defense, we already have a list of people that we can only go to, you know, so building that relationship that, you know, the people already have that have procured them, you know, because we generally, for big stuff, we do job order contracting for, so, you know, our roofers and stuff like that, you know, so I've always worked, you know, the people that I get is who I get, you know, but I try to, you know, always build a relationship with them, you know, so that way the project managers or those people that you really interact with will be like, okay, well, I know this building belongs to Mauricio, so let me send the best people that I have available at that time. So, you know, that relationship, that one-on-one relationship is really, really key. And I think that, you know, being amicable, I think, is the biggest portion for us as facility managers. Is, you know, we have to be people persons. You know, if we're not people persons, then, you know, it gets really hard for us in getting things done.
Yeah, and I just want to echo that with just a little funny that I had when I actually was interviewing for my current role. I was asked what I thought was the most important thing about being a facility manager. And I said, relationships are everything. And my boss came back to me in the second, well, when she was giving me my offer, and she said, so I was talking to, you know, such and such at UMB about you. And I said that she said the 3 magic words. And he's like, she told you she loved you? She said, no, she said, relationships are everything, because in this field, it's the truth. So that was my funny, because this senior vice president at UMB thought that I would tell someone I love them in an interview, which I was like, not quite, but yeah. So just to echo on that, because they really are the biggest part of everything we do. All right, so let's move on from the good to the bad. Julie, why don't you kick us off on this question? So, deferred maintenance. How do you prioritize projects, determining which to move forward with and which that you can defer at that time?
So we determine our priority based on risk to the business. So we've got a data center in the building. We do millions of people's taxes, and security is number one for the data center, and uptime as well. So anything related to the data center takes priority over any other projects, unless it's a safety concern. Safety concerns also rise to the very top of the list as well. And then beyond that, we just try to prioritize based on benefit to our associates.
Great, Nathan?
So, yeah, really similar. So, you know, safety is always first, then serviceability. Serviceability can be making sure that we have, you know, the switch gear in the hotels have been maintained and up to speed, because the last thing we need is something blowing up in a hotel and send our hotel dark for, you know, weeks and months, for however long it takes to get that equipment. Then certainly maintenance of the things that are looking like that they are going to create more problems and grow exponentially the longer you defer them. So concrete and parking lots, sometimes roofs fall into that. Is that, you know, I can go spend a couple of dollars a foot on a parking lot early on, and if I don't do that though, in 4 more years or 5 more years, maybe I'm spending $10 a foot. And so just always making sure that I'm communicating with the finance folks about that, hey, this problem's growing exponentially. And that's usually enough to help people kind of get their head around that these are the things that we're going to focus on first. You know, hey, the reality is that, you know, painted walls are always necessary to repaint and so forth. But the reality is a damaged, or not damaged, but a dirty painted wall or a dirty wall or something like that is not going to get any higher cost other than inflation if I delay that. But those are just the same things. Julie said it probably just as effectively as I did, but safety, serviceability, and then exponential maintenance items.
You know, we can all add our different examples to it though, and sometimes that's the perspective that, you know, hits home and resonates differently with people. So Zach, what do you got?
I would say a lot of similar things, but there is one unique piece. So, you know, life safety is number one. Then we have continuity and impact work that keeps us going. And we also like to consider the cost to defer. But there's the unique piece for church work is sometimes a project that you might defer because it's just not as important is a project that you put at the top of the list because there's a potential for funding. Somebody will come forward with money wanting to work on the stained glass windows, and even though you really wanted to work on air conditioners that year, you're going to do the stained glass window project because the money is there. And so what we do in those cases is we put the balance of work that isn't very attractive for donors into our operating budget. And then we pull apart some of the projects that are more flattering for somebody that wants to contribute to the building in some way. And we prioritize presenting those projects to those folks. So that's, I guess, one unique piece. But it means that the operating budget has to cover a lot of expensive things that people don't like talking about, like air conditionings and elevators and things like that.
Those are definitely the least glamorous of the things when people want to give you money. I know I was on the board at our church and school, and we did an ad hoc fund at an auction. So that way people knew it was just going to whatever operating expense needed to be done and they weren't picking the glitzy thing. So yeah, that can be a little harder to do. So good example. Mauricio?
So I don't know if ours is kind of unique, but because, you know, again, because of where I am, we live on deferred maintenance and reactive maintenance. I can't be really proactive because, you know, the funds we have are public. So everything is what we call it is the color of money. So I can only use certain pots for certain things. And, you know, for regular maintenance stuff, we got about a $5,000 budget for, you know, things that just, hey, this broke right now, we need to fix it, you know, kind of like an emergency fund. But when it comes to major things, we go into 5, 10, 15-year plans. You know, like right now, our water towers in my building are running on R22 refrigerant. And it's going to be that way for probably another 15 years because we have to gut the whole facility in order to change out, you know, what we do have. So, you know, that's one of the kind of things that I have to work with is okay, you know, I gotta, you know, pitch this a certain way on why we need it now, because, you know, we have so much red tape on everything. Because for us, again, it's, you know, deferred maintenance, defer everything until it really breaks, and then can we get another year out of it? If we can't, then we got to find the money for it.
Yeah, I've definitely lived that life. So I think we can all relate to when you're having to fix something for like 3 times the cost that you could have planned for earlier. So, all right. Next question. If we were to encounter another weather-related blackout in the area, what energy strategies do you have in place to keep your facility safe and running? Julie, kick us off.
Okay. Well, we have backup generators for our data center and for life safety. It's not for the entire building though. But we recently overhauled them, making sure we're keeping up with the regular maintenance of them annually. and quarterly, so that we don't have to worry about them kicking on when they need to kick on. We do have, we've got a parking garage, and so we've got heat tape on all of our exposed pipes in the parking garage, and those are also on that backup generator, just to make sure we don't bust any pipes in the garage.
Good call.
So ours, there's a lot of things that we learned, and we have a variety of sites, and we learned different things at different sites. And so the first and foremost, so we have the ability, so we buy gas through a wholesaler. And so we don't buy it directly through Spire. Spire just delivers it. So so it's really important that everyone understand what their wholesale agreements are for their natural gas, and understand how they're going to be charged. And just to give people a little bit of background, I don't know what everybody's knowledge is of natural gas, but natural gas goes for about $3 an MCF. During the February event, there were a few things that took place, but we went into a flow order, which meant that your wholesaler and your distributor are saying, get off of gas. Right now, you need to get off of gas. It's going to cost you upwards of $600 an MCF. So significant increase, obviously. Then we went into a force majeure, which was saying, hey, we're not going to be able to deliver gas. And that was a problem. But what we did is that we do have fuel oil, and making sure that you maintain your fuel oil tanks and the oil that's in there is critical. Many people overlook that, but it does have to be treated. It has to be stirred and polished and all of those other types of terms. But we had sites that were really good about maintaining the condition of their fuel oil, and they were able to fire off and run on fuel oil, which was much lower cost than the natural gas that if we could even get it. And then there were other folks that just couldn't burn, and so therefore they had to shut the plant down. They had to send 600 people home. They could not function, and so big things to learn. But I will tell you that we're still even actually learning more about it as these gas bills are floating around, and people are saying, well, hey, here's my gas. I think that the airport, I think that they were in the news that they were used to a $800,000 gas bill or something like that, and it was $2.3 million for the month of February. Those are all floating around like that. So the difference being is if you have fuel oil, you can avoid that, but you still need to be very aware of what the wholesale gas agreements are that you have. This doesn't fit everybody's scenario because a lot of people don't have fuel oil, but making sure your people understand how to operate it, how they be safe, all of those things. So, I think I said it earlier, I continue to learn every day in my job, and February was a huge college credit hour in how to deal with those types of events.
I think that's the best description I heard, a college credit hour. It really was. Zach, what you got?
Yeah, I think we all probably got a bit of an education when it came to the power outages and how it affected our buildings. We're fortunate at the church to have a bit of a unique situation where continuity of business, probably the most important thing that we do is Sunday services. So as long as we're working around that, we can make it work. And so we made a few changes kind of internally to deal with that. We do have a contracted vendor come out and manage our life safety backup, similar to what I think it was Julie that said that. Everything is battery powered, and we also have our server on battery. But when all of that was happening, we started to migrate our server and file systems and all of that to offsite, so that if we lost availability of our office space because of conditioned air or some kind of issue related to power, people would be able to work offsite and still access everything that they needed. And that was probably COVID responsive too, but has been a good thing for us. And then finally, unfortunately, if we lose gas and power, we don't have any way to heat the building, but our building is large enough that we have enough air in there that as long as we keep the pipes kind of partially open, we haven't seen a lot of freezing happen. So that's part of our mitigation, is our risk is having our facility manager come in and open up some of those taps, which is super simple. And probably a lot of our northerner folks know that, but you know, it was something we had to do in this case.
Great. Mauricio, what did you learn?
So I learned that our facilities will ultimately shut down about 95%, and there's no turning back from that. In my facility, there's only one place that's actually backed up by a generator for its HVAC and electricity, and that's one of our secret rooms where we operate some of the equipment and servers for training of the organizations that we house. And other than that, there's no electricity anywhere else. Our server stacks, our network is on battery backups. But if we were to lose electricity, then everybody, pretty much gets to go home. Because the generator, again, is only for the HVAC for those secure areas, because they don't have, they need the circulating air because of how they're built. But other than that, yeah, we pretty much get to go home for the most part.
Such different perspectives here. It's great to have everyone together.
Hey, can I throw out one other thing? That is just,
yeah.
I've heard generators mentioned, and what I want to call out, and it may be obvious to everyone, that that force majeure event was to tell us that they couldn't provide gas. And so, that is another one that about, if you're going to have a generator, and again, this has been a once in a lifetime event, it is good to have that generator be able to go to fuel oil as well, because again, this force majeure event that we were all notified of was that, hey, we're turning the valve and nothing's coming out because the valves are frozen and gas won't flow. So I just want to throw that out about, emergency generators, because this was an instance that they were saying that the gas supply was actually threatened. So it didn't matter how much you were willing to pay, it was just not going to be there. So just thought I'd throw that out.
No, that's a great point. And I also think this ties back to our relationships with our vendors, because if you have that relationship in place and you have built that, then you have someone who's willing to work with you. And, we had a vendor that said, we can't get you this, but here's who we can connect you with in order to make sure that you're still running. So that's definitely helpful in those situations. All right, so we're going to move on to the ugly. Can you give an example of an ugly situation you had to overcome? How did you address the critical feedback, and how could it have been better or worse?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going in this 4 pattern here.
That's okay, it works. One of my ugly situations, it was during the building project, and I was preparing the budget for furniture, and I was supposed to have a meeting with our VP about it, and we were a bit in the red, so she really needed to know that we were over budget. And she blew me off, and I didn't make it a point to get in front of her to give her this information. So we were sitting at the OAC, the owner architect meeting, and the budget came up around the table of about 20 people, and it was a surprise to her, and that didn't go over well. So I learned from that and her feedback afterwards, which was, it is my responsibility to inform her of anything, no matter how I have to get the information to her. So from then on, I took that seriously and to heart. And if anything comes up, I let my leadership know. I want them to hear it from me and not from somebody else. And I tried to go with a solution as well, besides just here's the problem.
Yeah, definitely helpful to have that solution on hand too, if you can. Nathan?
I don't think I will add much here other than just to almost say same. It's we always get taught the lesson that no matter what it takes, we've got to communicate it. That we always, well, is this here meaningful enough to tell them? And then you don't find out that it wasn't, that you needed to have told them until it's too late. So now I over communicate pretty much. So similar.
Fair point. Zach?
Yeah, we have a few things that would fall into this category, like everybody else. So it was actually kind of tough for me to think which issue I was going to talk about. We get a lot of floods here at the church. So that's always an easy thing to talk about, it being ugly. It's an older church. There's infrastructure, especially cast iron pipes that like to burst at inopportune times. I remember a particular point where I had to change out some light bulbs in the nave right before a wedding. So actually the rehearsal was going on while I was on a 20-foot ladder, changing out light bulbs, which is never what you really want to see, but we just had a whole bunch burn out right before an event. The one that is like most recent in my memory though is related to our parking lot, which was one of those large projects that we deferred for too long, mostly because the commission was kind of spinning around in circles around different options and plans. I should have spoken up sooner, realizing what the budget was to add so many spots. The dollars weren't making a lot of sense, for if you amortize the cost over time and look at how many spots we're adding, it just didn't make a lot of sense to me, but I kind of kept my mouth shut because the people that were there had been there for longer than I had. And that went to the point where the project, the initial scope went to engineering and we had plans drawn up and we sent them to the city only to find out that we were going to have to put in a huge detention system. And that wasn't on our radar. So the project went from being within a budget that was realistic to being outside of any realistic budget at all. And so we had wasted a bunch of engineering money that could have been put into the project itself, only to refine the scope in the 9th hour to be just redoing the project, a mill and overlay. That kind of stung a little bit for a lot of the folks involved. And then the project continued to evolve after that. And I won't get into the nitty-gritty details, but anytime you have to cut down trees, your neighbors are going to be irritated with you. And that's just a reality of doing a project. So you get a lot of public opinion in an institution like a church, because we're in a residential neighborhood. And we have to make changes that make sense for us and for our budget and for the stewardship of the funding that we have. And that doesn't always make for happy neighbors. So I think the things that I drew from that experience, what could have been better is communicating where I was at earlier in the process, saying, I really don't think this makes sense. We might want to think about adjusting scope or doing more fact finding and information seeking. And then after that, it's really over communicating, like everyone else has said, not just to the internal stakeholders, but to the folks who live next door to the property or to manage properties nearby, about what you're thinking of doing and how it might affect their continuity of business or sight lines or things like that. And I honestly hadn't taken on a lot of projects being an emerging professional of that scale. So $230,000 and about 15 college credits later, I know what I would do different, but hopefully I won't have to touch that parking lot for a good long time.
Yeah. Ouch. But at least it was resolved, and yeah, you did learn something, even if it took 15 college credits. All right, Mauricio, what do you got?
So for ugly for me, the one that I think I will always remember the most is when I was at K-State. It was game day. I think it was the opening game for the season in 2018 for football. And we have this area in front of the baseball stadium where we would do the what's it called, like the barbecue pits and all that big stuff, the outdoor stuff. The night prior, I'm sorry.
Tailgating.
Oh yeah, tailgating. That's what it is. Tailgating. So the tailgating area. The night before, our tent vendor came out to install tents for specific ones. Well, in all their work, they didn't follow the dig site, where everything's marked, and they hit the gas line, the main gas line for the whole area. It's the one that fed the baseball stadium, the training facilities, the track and field, and Bill Snyder Family Stadium. To try to keep it short, ultimately we go to the plans, and there we find out that there is absolutely no gas shutoff valves within about 800 meters of where the puncture is. So and people were already barbecuing in the morning, getting everything ready, and we had to shut everybody down, turn off all the fires. We had to push all of the golf carts away because the spark plugs and stuff are open, and we had to move about 2,000 people from one area to another, in order for them to at least try to save the tailgating. And then, so it was just crazy. It was a crazy 4-hour morning. We had the fire department there. So we had to dig out the line, and ultimately they had to do what's called the hot fix. So, they just had to patch that area while the gas was still running. So there was a lot of stress in there, but thankfully everything was fixed safely. The fire department got to leave, and we got to finish the tailgating in another area. A lot of the feedback that we got from the people that were there for tailgating is they were super surprised and happy with the steps that we took as K-State facilities for the athletics department. And they were happy to know that they were safe and that they still got to enjoy tailgating in one way or another. But as well, learn, the biggest takeout for me was learn where everything is, look at the schematics, talk to the older people that have been there forever, because they know where shutoffs are that the plans don't. But it was pretty interesting. It's one that I'll always remember.
Yeah, I don't think I could forget that one either. I do like though something that you said, which is the positive feedback from those attending. And a quick example, many of you who went to World Workplace in Denver a few years ago, if you recall, so while we were in Denver, it was actually the last night of the entire conference. So I was asleep. I think it was like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little bit later. And the fire alarm starts going off, and I hear banging at my door. And I jump up and go to the door, and these very nice firemen, which, I first kind of thought, just to be funny, it was like a dream. There's firemen banging on my hotel room door in the middle of the night. However, they were evacuating all of us. Sam, I knew you would laugh at that. They were evacuating all of us because there was a bomb threat. And I can't even remember how many floors were in that hotel, more than 40, I want to say. And they cleared out the entire building and brought us to a safe spot off site. And you could hear a lot of people grumbling, and those were all the non-facilities managers that were there, because all of us FMs were very appreciative of the way that they handled it, promptly, efficiently. They kept everybody calm. They took care of us. It was definitely I actually called them after I got home the next day and said, I just want to thank you for how well that was executed, because you kept us safe and you really kept people calm. And I think a lot of times we do point out the things that go wrong, and that little thank you goes a long way in our industry. So yeah, those crazy things.
Michelle, can I add a little tidbit to that?
Yeah.
What was funny it was not funny that they had the fire drill and the bomb threat, but Michelle's, of course, the last night already home in bed, which I couldn't understand that part, but we weren't. We were up and we were walking through the convention center, which was right across the street from this hotel. And all of a sudden, all these people start pouring out onto the street in their robes and in their pajamas and all this stuff. And they didn't know what to do. It lasted for 4-6 hours. It was quite a while before they let you back in. And I'm trying to remember who it was. There were 2 or 3 people. We were walking down the street to go, I guess, to another bar or something. And somebody said, well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, let's go down here and have a drink. And they said, well, we're in our pajamas. I said, it didn't have to say you can't go in there with your pajamas on. So they came down with us and sat in their pajamas and robes. And we stayed out till, I don't know, it was probably 2 o'clock. The only bad thing about that World Workplace is that was where that guy accidentally took my $800 suit coat that was with my Joseph Abood suit. That I never got my suit coat back either.
Oh, Sam. So the moral of the story is that if you're going to be evacuated from a building, be with FM, so at least you can have a good time. All right. We're going to move on from the ugly, and we have some additional questions. The first one, and Julie, I will start with you again, is if there's advice or one question that you wish you were asked so you could share that best piece of career advice to someone else, what would it be? what would be the question and then your answer to that?
Oh, I don't know that I have a question. I just have advice. Can I have two pieces of advice? My
Of
first
course you
one
can.
is okay. My first one is with my background, I really didn't have a whole lot of exposure to finance or finances or business cases or things like that. So that is one thing that I highly recommend you familiarize yourself with. How does a budget work? How does the fiscal year work? What can you accrue? And what do you need to use to put together for a business case? In the last presentation, Anna Grather had put out a couple of different slides that were really great, just one pagers of, you know, here's what we need and here's why we need it, kind of a business case. So being able to state that financially and very quickly to your leadership, I think is one really good thing to have. And then also, as we said at the beginning, relationships are the key. Really, or internally or with vendors, that's the key.
All right, how about you, Nathan?
Well, I'm going to follow a little bit how Julie did that because I didn't have the question, but you know, I'm going to give it in three parts. Is that and the first two are for whether you're an FM or not, and that's just always be prepared when opportunity knocks. It comes in many different ways. You never know when it's going to come up, and just try to react appropriately. Next one is build trust in all you do, and just make sure that people know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And then the last one goes exactly with what Julie was. I'm a mechanical engineer. I really get excited about thermodynamics and heat transfer and all those kinds of things that most people find really boring and they don't want anything to do with. But I will tell you that the thing that I had to do is I had to build enhanced skills around communication. And then I had to become more of a finance person than I was an engineer. I needed to understand what cash flow was. I needed to understand about, you know, if we need to accrue, and the fact that, you know, if we didn't spend that money last year, that, well, that's going to disappear. And now we're going to start with a clean slate with the new bag of money, and why that is. You know, have to be able to flip between whenever finance is talking about EBITDA versus cash flow, and well, why they care about those. But just make sure you understand that you're going to have to go learn new skills, and you may have to be better in those than you were in the things that got you where you are.
Great. Zach?
I think that's all very good advice. I would say the power of the question, especially when you run into those things that maybe aren't your area of strength. I have found that just asking doesn't hurt anything. And sometimes it can be a really valuable opportunity to learn. You know, we've received some insurance claims here, and there's always a depreciation aspect attached to that. And just calling my agent and saying, okay, can you unpack some of that for me, help me to understand how I get the most of this claim and make sure that I get the work done that I need to get done so we don't have to revisit it. You know, keeping in mind in those relationship things, what is the other person concerned with? Just like Nathan mentioned, you know your audience, right? It's good advice. Maybe the rector of the church, or whatever, your director or vice president, doesn't need to know all the nitty-gritty details about the air conditioning, but they need to know how much it costs. Or maybe they're the type of person that wants to know all of those things. So it's about communicating appropriately to the folks that need to know things. And then I would say Nathan's advice related to building trust is really important, and something that I've realized is sometimes just walking in and being honest about a project going over budget is one of the more powerful experiences when you have that happening. And I think we all probably run into that. But you know, going to my finance commission and saying, hey, look, you know, the frost went deeper this year than it ever has before, and it messed up a bunch of our irrigation system, and it's going to be expensive, and we didn't anticipate it in our budget, but here we are. So let's find some dollars for it. And you know, that's a tough moment because I wasn't prepared for it, but that transparency builds trust. And then I would say just being organized. I was not the most organized person in the world, but coming into this job, I actually have a book recommendation. It's called Getting Things Done, GTD. And it really helped me to kind of build out a system where, you know, all the 42,000 different things, I have a place where I can document, how many days a week does the trash get picked up? So I don't just have to remember that. I can kind of offload that information. It's been super helpful.
Good advice. Mauricio.
So for me, I guess I would say is hospitality and emotional intelligence are like some of the biggest things that we need. For me, where I work, we have what I consider a high-end customer base. That they are used to, generals are used to saying, hey, when I say something, it gets done. And when it comes to the facilities, we can't just get things done sometimes like they wish. But to know, how to continue to be, have that hospitality and knowing how to talk to those people or your customer, your tenants is really, really important. And, emotional intelligence with that is, okay, how do I control my facial expressions, what my eyes are doing, the types of, my voice fluctuations is really important in getting across to those tenants or those customers when you have to say no, and this is why. So it's really important to be able to learn those things. And me as a emerging professional, only being a facility manager now for about 2-3 years, it's something that I've learned that I have to understand people in order to tell them, hey, this is why your request can't be done. But we could look into something else where you could get, there's a compromise, or where both parties can benefit from it.
Great. So I have one last question for the panel, and then I'd like to do some Q&A if people have some burning questions out there. So the last question is, how long is the school/education path and credentials after you're in the FM field? Like, how long did it take you to get where you are? Or if you have credentials, how did that work for you? And then I think the burning question for most people is, how difficult is that?
I'll start. So like I had said before, so I have a interior design degree and facility management. What was that? I had no idea what that was, and basically fell into it over the course of a couple of years working on a couple of different projects. I was recruited by some wonderful ladies here in town. A company called Faciliteam and then FM Extension were two that I worked for. And really that was about the project and relocation management. And they are the ones that were involved in IFMA and got me involved right away once I started working with them. So that was in the late 90s. And then I got my CFM in 2004. I got it while I was pregnant with my oldest child. And my commitment was to take it before they added, what was it, the technology section or something like that. I'm like, I got to get this done before they add another skill set onto the list. And so I did. And then I just keep maintaining it. So I've had my CFM for 17 years, and I enjoy going to World Workplace to keep up my credentials, and then also, doing things like this, being involved in IFMA, being on the board. Been on the scholarship committee for years. So all that involvement has really helped me with meeting people and meeting peers and having peers that I can call up. I can call up Sam and say, hey, what have you done for this problem before? Or call on Todd and say, have you used this vendor before? So that I can lean on them for support and for advice.
Absolutely. Nathan, what do you got?
Yeah, this is one of the tougher questions that I didn't come up with great answers on. So I'm a mechanical engineer. I have my PE. All of that was pretty difficult back in the day doing all of that. But there's other paths into FM. I'm not a CFM. But just maintaining my PE and my broker's license, which is kind of a tie back over from between real estate and FM. Those are all things you just have to continue to push through. But the reality is, I think I'm still on my I'm not officially enrolled in anything, but I'm definitely still in school and being educated every day on my path. So I don't know if that's a great answer or not, but that's kind of my reality.
I feel like it is a great answer because, and I'm just going to reiterate, if I could speak, this again, the fact that we have 4 different, very different people on this panel who all have different backgrounds and experiences just makes those answers so much better for the whole group. I mean, every one of you has something to contribute that's a little bit different, and we all ended up where we are a different way. So it's good to be able to have one of your perspectives to relate to. So yeah, great answer. Zach, what about you?
I think one of the nice things about this career choice is that you do get to have sort of a lifelong learner experience. I don't think there will be any point where I feel like I know enough, and I like that. I enjoy that aspect of this. But like I said, I do have my MBA, and I think that was a really good choice in my context. It exposed me to a lot of different things, and I use the word expose very intentionally because there wasn't really a deep dive moment into anything particularly, but you get a little bit of finance, a little bit of communications, a little bit of project management, and that was very helpful. I end up doing a lot of reading to kind of expand my knowledge in those areas, which is really enjoyable. I have a feeling that if Tina has her way, that at some point I will have a CFM or an FMP, but for now I'm kind of just enjoying being graduated for a minute. If anybody is looking for a good MBA program, I can recommend my alma mater, but I'll keep that into interpersonal communication. I think there's just a tremendous amount to learn from the other folks in this group, and I think everybody else has already said that. But you know, it's great to be able to pick up the phone and talk to Ash about a flood that we're facing, or you know, somebody from Lexington Plumbing. Tom even comes over to the building every now and then. And those people are just a wealth of knowledge because they've done the research in their fields, and they know what they know, and they can educate me. And I always look for that in my partners in the organizations that we work with. Is, are they an educator? Can they come in and not just do the work, but can they bring our staff kind of up a level of knowledge about how the boiler works or how the air conditioning system works? That's super key.
Absolutely. What about you, Mauricio?
So for me, you know, I was, you know, a 12-year Army veteran. And then I abruptly decided to get out of the Army because it just wasn't working for me anymore. Ended up going to school. You know, I got my associate's degree in construction, and I also, after that, I started working as a roofer, and you know, got into maintenance at K-State, where I worked my way up to be a maintenance manager there. I got my bachelor's degree in management as well, and about, what was it, 2 years now, I got my FMP through a scholarship through IFMA. So you know, I'm a big proponent of IFMA. You know, the reason how I got into facility management is I was in career development mentorship with Gene Taylor, who's the athletic director for K-State, and he told me, well, what are you doing for your future? And I didn't have an answer, and he's like, well, you know, you're a maintenance manager, you should look into organizations. And I found IFMA through just you know, through a search engine, and it's been one of those great blessings that I've had. Is, you know, this organization has helped me, you know, in the 4 years now I've been an IFMA member, to continue to grow and you know, go from being a maintenance worker to, you know, now being a facilities manager. You know, it's great. You know, so that's how I kind of got into it, just by, you know, doing development by a leader that cared about my future. And you know, here I am.
And we're happy you're here. Yeah, I think there's a number of us that I know, at least I got my SFP through a scholarship from KC IFMA. They sent me to, I was able to go to Chicago. My company said they would fund the trip and IFMA funded the cost of the class. And I went to a 5-day class, which somebody should warn you about sitting in class for 5 days on anything related to facilities management. I think honestly by day 5, I was sitting on the floor because I couldn't sit in those chairs anymore in a hotel. Just that was done. But but yeah, so I hope all of us have at least, 10 good things to say about the fact that we've been in IFMA and the Kansas City chapter and what that's brought to our lives. But absolutely happy that I got my SFP and then my CFM, which I thought was going to be a breeze. After I took Tina's 2-day class, I was like, I got this. And then I was taking the actual test in one of those, those rooms at a college. And I said this little prayer, and I was like, if I'm not going to pass, I don't want to know. Like, I don't want to know if I don't make it. So I clicked the submit button and the screen went black, and I thought, oh dear God, I can't do this again. And then it came up with congratulations, and it was all good. But I think we all have these moments of like, how has this helped us? And relationships, I just keep going back to that for all of us. Relationships are absolutely a key. So those are all of our formal questions. I definitely want to open up to what things are on your mind, what questions are burning that you guys have for this panel. So is there anybody who's got something that they really want to ask?
Michelle, I don't have anything I want to ask. I just have 2 comments. First of all, I am extremely happy that a few of my current students for the Essentials of FM at State Fair Community College had an opportunity to listen to you all, because I have been trying to explain to them what IFMA is, who IFMA is, and why IFMA could be a game changer for them. And it's hard for me to relate that. It's hard. I mean, if you're around me long enough, look at my office. I'm surrounded, my whole life is surrounded with IFMA, right? So I really want to thank you all very, very much for sharing your stories and sharing your comments, because it really is important for us to share that. And then hopefully they will then share it with others. And, my intent is to try and get a student chapter started for State Fair and to move forward. And we're already talking about what are their next steps? What other courses should they be taking? What other certifications should they be getting? And Julie, thank you for the plug on business cases, because their final assignment for their last class on May 26th is to actually build a business case based on everything that they've learned over the last 12 weeks. And building a business case is probably one of the key things. And that's what I've been preaching that. And now it's wonderful that you confirmed that for me. And the other thing, and by the way, a couple of the students are going to stay after. So if anybody wants to stay after and have a little chat and meet them and answer and they'll introduce themselves, and we can have a little more private conversation. But the other thing I did want to put a plug in, the next CFM workshop is September 15th and 16th. And so just for those of you, Zach, that were trying to get their CFM, no, I'm just kidding. I'm giving you a hard time. But anybody that is interested, or if you know anybody that is interested in sitting for the CFM, we are going to have another workshop on the 15th and 16th. So thank you all for your commitment. And after 31 years, you all know how I feel about IFMA and all of you. So be well, and I'm going to hush now.
I'll probably be in
you
that
never
one.
have to hush. Yeah, shameless plug. I will tell you that I went through Tina's class for 2 days, and I walked away with this absolute feeling of, you know what, I need to study. I mean, it wasn't like, it was eye-opening for me, because she points out exactly the areas of opportunity, what is going to be out there on that examination. And you might think you know the world about facilities management, or at least I did. I thought I was a little cocky going into that class, and then I had myself set straight. So if you are at all interested in getting your CFM, I would highly recommend taking a couple of days and spending it with Tina and whoever else is in that class, because again, these perspectives are the best things that you're going to get.
I just have to say, you learn more from each other than you do me. I facilitate the learning, but it's a village.
Can I add in there too a little bit about this? I think there's a lot of us, we got our CFMs a long time ago. We studied together. There was a group, I don't know, must have been about 15 or 20 of us. And we studied all summer. We would meet at Joe Antheus is one of our members. And we'd study together and we learned not only about the CFM and what it needed to be to pass the test, but you basically learned about FM. It's not just really a designation that you're receiving, it's an education that you're receiving in the, I don't know, what is it now? Is it 11 or 13 proficiencies? 11? What used to be, when we took the test, it was 9.
11. There's
It's
11.
They've added 2. And when we took it in 1994, it was an 8-hour test. We had 4 hours in the morning and we had a break. We had proctors sitting up on the stage watching us so we wouldn't cheat. And then we had 4 hours in the afternoon. And I think that probably one of the funniest things in my FM career, and there's been a lot of them, was that was the same day my best friend was getting married. And I started out as a voice major in college. So my career path was really strange. I had a degree in music education and I fell into facility management, but I had to sing at his wedding in Independence at 5 o'clock and the test went clear up to 4 or even later. And it was about a 40-minute drive then at that time. You couldn't go 70. So during our break in the middle of the test, about I think it was about 2:30, 3 o'clock, I went into the bathroom and put my tuxedo on, changed my clothes and finished the last half of the CFM test. And Tina can vouch for this in my tux. And I was like the first person done. I ran up there and threw it on there. And I think I left there about 4:15, 4:20. And I walked in right as they were starting the wedding. It was just like, whew. So that's the crazy of FM for me, and true story. So
As usual, Sam, you went out in style.
I think I probably could say I am the only person that's ever taken the CFM test in a tuxedo.
I have a quick question, Michelle. One thing, I actually had this on a list of extra questions to ask for the emerging professionals, but like back in the spring, our CEO of the Smart Americas shared that one of her routines that she has every day to start out her day is that she always has to run on the treadmill every morning. She's a busy, successful career woman. She has a son at home still that she's trying to help with school and then in work at the same time. So is there a habit or something that you all have to do to successfully set you up to get your day going and started? Or maybe something you do at the end of the day to unwind, deflate when you have everything going wrong in the world or even going good in the world of facilities management?
Well,
Yeah.
I'll go. Oh.
You go, Beall.
Okay. I do exercise in the morning. When we were at the office, we have a gym there and I was doing it over the lunch hour, but now that the gym isn't open at work, I joined another location that's very close to my house. So I get up and do that in the morning. But then the night before, I always look at my calendar for the next day. So I at least know what the set things are that are going to happen, the meetings, because in between that, it could be complete chaos. So I just at least know the things that that are set for the day.
Julie, it's Becky. I'll add to that is I actually set an alarm clock on my phone because I'll get so heads down on a task or so busy fixing something in another part of the building that I'll forget. So 10 minutes before any meeting, I've got an alarm. Apple gives you the 9 minutes. And so then if I got a second reminder at 1 minute before the meeting, and then I'll sign up. And because at least when you were all in the building together and you were going to a meeting, someone would grab you and go, hey, you going to that meeting? Now that we're home and everything's Zoom, I'm half and half home, half in the building. That's been my lifesaver because I've forgotten to join a meeting.
That's a good one, Becky.
It is a good one. To tag on to that, I don't know if Androids do this. I've had Apples for too many years, iPhones for too many years, but I talk to Siri and I tell her to remind me of things all the time, because when you're out in the field and you're like when I'm visiting branches or whatever, and I'm not don't have the ability to, technically on your phone, yeah, you can set a calendar reminder, but if I tell Siri to set me a reminder, it pops up on my lock screen and it doesn't go anywhere until I tell it to mark it as completed or whatever. And so I'll say, Siri, remind me at 6 o'clock tonight to set this up or to call so-and-so back or whatever. And then that pops up for me and it's there. So I agree. Using technology to our advantage is a definite help. And on the flip side of that, every single day at the end of my day, I write a to-do list on paper. I still do it every night. And that way I know where I'm starting for the next day. I know what my, barring any fires coming that trump my priority list, I know exactly where I'm headed, and it just makes me feel more together starting my day out. So I haven't completely abandoned pen and paper, as I'm sure some have.
Michelle, I will say I'm still a pen and paper, but I got so many lists going. So I have started using the OneNote. And what I like about OneNote is that it's on my desktop and it's on my phone. So if I'm walking the building and think of something I need to do, I can add it to the OneNote. And then when I get back to my desk, it's sitting there. So I'll also text myself things like when I'm trying to go to sleep or if I'm somewhere and can't remember, I'll text from my personal phone to my work phone and then won't check that text purposely until the next morning. So I have all sorts of little tricks because there's just so many balls in the air.
Absolutely. What else do the rest of you have? What do you do to set yourself up for success?
So for me, I'll spend about 30 to 45 minutes on the IFMA's N Gauge. It's like a community forum that IFMA has on their page, where people, other facility managers ask questions, and a lot of people get in there and collaborate on getting an answer, stuff like that. I felt it's one of those places where I've actually learned a lot as well, besides my regular readings that I do on the on my own. But that's one of the things I like doing is getting on Engage and reading other interactions between other facility managers, because it opens my eyes to other things that are going on when I do have questions. Well, how does other people do this? That's a great place to go to and see a different, a different area or a different way of doing things.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And they archive all of that information, so you can just do a search on your topic, and you can even put in one word and it'll come up. So yeah, that's great. What you got, Sam?
The one thing that I learned early on is, and it was my boss actually was the one that told me, is anytime I walk around my building, and I get up twice a day when we were in the building and would go through just my walkabout, just the old managed by walking about thing, just to see all the different apartments, what's going on, if there's something that pops up. But I mean, I carry around this little notepad with me. And I mean, that way you always have those drive-bys. Somebody's walking down the hallway and they go, oh, Sam, by the way, we need to have so-and-so move from this cube to that cube. He'll be doing it on Tuesday. And before you get back to your desk, somebody else will ask you something, and you sit down and you completely forget that one. And then they come to you Tuesday and they say, how come so-and-so's desk's not ready? And you go, well, you told me in the hallway and I forgot. We have a track it system that people are supposed to use. We kind of started, I always feel it's very impersonal. Impersonal. You say, well, can you please put a work order in track it, or whatever it's called now? It always felt like, you're putting them off by telling them to go do that. But I mean, carry around a notebook and write it down, because you'll forget it if you don't. And I mean, that's lists and sticky notes were the way I do everything. I've got sticky notes all over the wall in my office that are like, somebody tells me something, I write it down there and I put it up there, so I know that I can. It's kind of like having a scoreboard up there. If anybody knows the Franklin Covey, some of the way they do their scoreboard, and it shows you're making progress. You can pull things off your scoreboard and know that you're getting them done. So there's just all kinds of little things like that. But always have a notepad in your hand and a pen, because when you get old like me, you forget it really fast.
All right. Anybody else have tips, tricks, or questions?
I wanted to hit on one that didn't get asked, but it was kind of circulated before, is about what we dislike about FM. And I think it's one that is, it's important to talk about. For me, it is anyway. I think that one of the biggest challenges of an FM facilities manager is that sometimes you can become that organization of no if you don't watch it. And because invariably everybody wants something. I mean, so the employees of the building, the guests of the complex, whatever it happens to be, the tenants, they always want something. And usually that something has a dollar associated with it. So many times you find yourself having to say, I can't do that, or I can't do this. And just making sure that I always recognize the fact that we could become viewed as the organization of no, and just making sure that I'm fighting through it and making sure that I'm trying to explain it in a way that they can at least understand. Every now and again, we just have to find comfort in knowing that we're liked even better than the EHS person, at least. But anyway, it's one of those things that I always want to try to make sure that I'm cognizant of, is that many people will look at us as the organization of no.
I like that. Yeah, we had a list of a lot of great questions, and in the effort of time, we condensed them down. So if anybody else on the panel wants to answer that, we still have a couple of minutes here.
Yeah, I have to totally agree with Nathan. At one point in time, since I've been at Block, and it all just depends on who your leader is. If you become that group of no, or you become the group of no, but here's what I can do for you instead. So we're always trying to make our internal image a little bit better. But again, things cost money, they take time. Not being able to make everybody happy, I think that's one of my challenges and things that I don't like about FM. I'm kind of a people pleaser, and I want everybody to have what they want and get what they need to get their jobs done, and have a great environment and things like that. But it all comes down to money and time.
Julie, I'll add on to that. Working for a nonprofit, it makes it even more difficult when your budgets are very tight. And I report to the VP of HR. So I was lucky enough to always say, you're going to have to run that by Eric. And I never would say no, because we went to a Tom Peters thing one time, and somebody, he had something about, if somebody ever asked you, is this your job? Our boss said, you never tell somebody, no, it's not my job, or no, I'm not going to do that. You say, well, that's not my area, but let me see what I can do to help you get to the right person or get that accomplished. So I always used to push him up to Eric, the HR guy, the VP of HR, and his title is Dr. No. We called him Dr. No all the time, and he was the bad guy. And facilities, pretty much everybody liked us because we generally, most of the time, got everything done that we could do from a financial standpoint. And so we were able to push that off on the HR guy.
For me, it's more of there's so much red tape in being able to do things. That's the one thing I don't like about doing facility management on the DoD side, because there's always an easy no, and to get a yes, I have to do 10 times the work. So that's the one thing about me being in Department of Defense facilities wise, is that for us it's a easy no and a hard yes.
And Mauricio, I'll back that up simply because I'm government. I'm not DHS, but Sam talks about your budget. My budget comes in typically about a 4-month, 5-month window. We're constantly on continuing resolutions. You guys hear it all the time from your Senate and the news. But what it means is I don't get money until February, and then I have to spend it by July. And then I always have in what we call UFR lists, which is unfunded requests. It's that list you have, the things you want to do that didn't get on the budget. And I'm often told, I'm often approached going, okay, I have an extra $50,000 or whatever the sum is. Sometimes it's 10,000. One time it's 75. You've got to spend it in 3 weeks. You have to have it, not when I say spend it, we have to have it more, it's more, it has to be allocated. I don't actually have to write the check and use the money, but I have to have it obligated, fill out all the paperwork, get all the, and Mauricio is correct in the paperwork is excruciating on the government side. And so, and you have to do it just right or your contracting agents won't work with you on it. And it's just painful. So that's my experience from the government side. I want to add a tidbit of guidance that I learned early in my career when I was working for an architectural firm. I came up kind of as Julie did. But I was putting Helzberg Diamonds into their new corporate headquarters. We were about, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks away from move-in. And I realized I'd forgotten to order conference room tables for Mr. Helzberg and Mr. Comet, which was their #1 and #2 person. They were taking their existing furniture because it had only been about 3 or 4 years old, but they didn't have conference rooms. So in those days, it was paper purchase orders, and they were handing me signed, empty purchase orders. And so I spent time trying to figure out how can I do this without telling them my mistake and just getting around it. Because the money was there, I just hadn't ordered it with everything that I was ordering for them. And finally, I just decided I'm gonna fall on the sword. And I walked to them and we had a meeting with them and I said, I messed up. This is what I did. And the other thing I would recommend is, first of all, tell the truth. Second of all is, as we've said, don't just say no, say no, but how about this? So when I went to them with the problem, I said, here are 2 or 3 things we can do. We can get loaners, we can get, you know, something else. It was a non-blip on their radar screen that I had messed up. And here I had stewed for probably days, maybe even a week or so. It's been so long. This was like in 1991. Yes, thus I'm that old. But I fell on the sword and he's like, well, we don't have it now. What's the big deal if we miss it a few more weeks? We got it ordered that day. It came in, but I learned, and I was a consultant to them, but then they always trusted me. If I had gone the backdoor way, there may have always been a glimmer of doubt in their mind, was I telling them the truth? So I took the slow boat to China to tell that story, but always be honest. And if you have to approach a problem, bring solutions with you. So.
That's great. I do agree very much with the being honest and transparent, because otherwise there's always that shadow of a doubt for you later on. And I'm going to give us one last bit. That's for all the emerging leaders and those of you at State Fair. This is going to sound absolutely silly, but find balance. It is the absolute hardest thing to do in this field, in my opinion. I've spent years working a ridiculous amount of hours. And sometimes when I first started at CVS, I worked 7 days a week for 3 months before I had a day off. Some of those days, 16, 17 hours. I missed big things with my daughter during that time and other times. And I now work where I have a boss who told me, if you're working more than, 8 to 10 hours in a day, I don't want you here. There's problems, barring any emergencies. I just took a week off. I was moving. I took a week off and I did not answer my phone or answer email. I made sure that I had a point of contact in place. And for the first time in my whole career, I did not spend every minute checking that phone when it beeped. And it's really, really hard to do, especially when you love what you do. But find that balance, because it's the most important thing you can do for yourself. It'll keep you from burning out. It'll keep your family a little happier with you, and you'll just enjoy every day more. I absolutely love what I do. And I wouldn't have spent that many hours working if I didn't, but but find the balance. That would be my one good piece of advice that I could give. So in closing, I know a bunch of people have had to drop off, but thank you so much to our panel. Thanks to everyone who was able to join us today. This has been one of my favorite meetings. I love these things. I love when we have panels and we have discussions, and usually it's roundtables in a physical spot that you're hopping around. So this is great. I had a great time, and I appreciate everyone taking their time to join us today.
Thank you.
Michelle, thank you for moderating today. We appreciate it. On behalf of the Emerging Professionals Committee, thank you so much, panelists and Michelle. Thank you.
So for people who would like to stay on, please do. If you can't, I absolutely understand, but we are going to have a couple of people I'm going to want to introduce you to. So my folks from State Fair can show their faces so everybody can say hello. That would be awesome. And if you can't stay, I understand. But let's see, who else do I have? Michelle. Hey, Michelle, how are you? What, are you leaving? Michelle?
I'm going to go ahead and drop off, guys, just because I had a car strike a branch and we'd like to go resolve that. So everybody go have a great day.
Yeah. See, it's never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too. Thanks, Michelle.
So I have James. James, are you going to put your screen on? Put your...
Hell, I don't know.
We want to see your face.
I'm not that facial person.
So would each of you, David, Michelle, and Christine, and James, would you introduce yourself and say, first of all, they're all students in the Essentials of FM at State Fair Community College, and I get to actually meet them in person tomorrow night. We are having a road trip. We're going to UCM to actually see some of the things that we've been talking about for the last 7 weeks. But if you guys would like to introduce yourself we have people that you've already heard from. Sam is a longtime member, Brittany Gamble, a longtime member. Most of the people that are still on here are oldies but goodies, except for we have some newer faces. Amy's still a new face. Yeah. And Amy actually works for the Kaufman Center for the Performing Arts, which was actually one of my projects before I kind of almost retired. But anyway, David, Christine, Michelle, James, would you guys like to introduce yourself?
Go ahead, ladies.
Go, Christine. You're muted. Christine. Michelle, you want to go while she's figuring it out?
Yeah, my name is Michelle Statler. I'm the custodial lead at State Fair Community College, and I'm taking the essential class, and I really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for inviting us to sit in on this meeting. I've got pages of notes that I've been taking. I really enjoyed it.
This was the story I was trying to tell you. See, it took 45 people to tell it. Christine, have you found your mic yet?
Yeah, that would be technology at its finest. I'm Christine Brown. I'm operations coordinator for facilities management at State Fair Community College. So this has been very informative. It's kind of neat hearing the stuff that we have been talking about in classes, people saying those things like the walkabout and just different things. It's kind of put a lot of stuff in perspective. So it's been we appreciate you letting us sit in on this.
It was almost like I gave you guys the syllabus of the class, because every once in a while there'd be like something pop up and I go, I told him about that. We talked about that. Yeah, we just talked about that last night. Or last
We're
week.
living it on a daily basis.
And they're living it. David?
Hi, I'm the Director of Facilities for UCM in Warrensburg, Missouri. I'm a certified education professional in higher ed with APA, and I was working on my FM certification. So I'm happy to be in the class and like to see As far as the private sector, I've been in the public sector of education for the last 8 years. So, you know, I had a question that would relate to how much you deal with real estate is really what I was kind of interested to know about that.
Real estate is one of the proficiencies in the, whether it's, I don't know if the FMP, but the CFM. My luxury is the facility that we own 60 acres and we own our building. We're an owner occupied facility. We do not have to deal with leases or tenants or any of that kind of thing. So I really couldn't, except for what little experience I've had, you know, just staying educated on it. I couldn't tell you much about real estate, except they don't make any more of it.
David, one thing that might be helpful to you is this morning, the IFMA chapter, the Kansas City ifmaKC chapter education committee met this morning. And we were talking about doing an essentials class for the chapter in conjunction with State Fair for the next one. I have a meeting with Amy Jackson at 2 o'clock this afternoon to discuss that. But what we also talked about was doing a prep. We're trying to decide whether we want to do a competencies workshop before or after the CFM workshop. And what I mean by that is what Sammy alluded to is before we took our tests, we actually had small study groups. And each week it was a different subject. And so if you felt that you were a little bit weak in one area, say real estate, and that was one of the most popular, believe me. Real estate and finance were the most attended of the focus groups or workshop groups. And what we would do is we would bring somebody in that understood real estate. For instance, one of the workshops that we did for real estate, I invited Carl Asala. And Carl Asala is a very, very, very well-known real estate broker here in Kansas City with LaSalle Sonnenberg. And he actually was my retail broker for all of the shops and retail services at the Sprint campus. Ironically, he's now trying to help me find another building for one of my other charities. But anyway, that's what relationships will do for you. So stand by and I will keep you guys informed as to how we decide to go about that, whether we decide to do the focus groups or workshop, the individual, focus groups before or after we do the workshop on the 15th and 16th. And even if you don't think you're ready for the CFM to sit for the exam itself, some people come just to understand what are they talking about when they talk about the 11 competencies. What exactly does that mean? We spend a little bit of time on how to physically take the test and understand the question process and that sort of thing. But we do delve into a little bit. We take just to dip our toes in all 11 competencies. But we will be having either the focus groups before or after the next CFM workshop. And then you can learn more about real estate. James, I don't think you got to introduce yourself. There he is.
James Trujillo, State Fair Community College. I'm the operations manager. Probably should have been doing this class probably 20 years ago or even 30.
Well, hey, it's better late than never. Remember my story about the guy that was 72 that was in my IFMA,
Yes.
my CFM workshop? He was retiring from the city of Kansas City, Missouri, and he did it just to say he knew it, just to say he finally did it. He did it the week he retired from the city. So, hey, it's never too late. Do you guys have any questions for any of the members? I just appreciate you taking extra time out of your schedule to join us. And I really, now that you understand more about IFMA and about the chapter, it'll make a lot more sense when we get together and talk about the possibilities of you guys being an extension of us as a student chapter. And that's what I'm discussing with Diane and the folks at HQ. And then also Amy, that's on Amy's and my agenda. Amy Jackson, that's on our agenda to talk about this afternoon as well. So I don't have anything else if you guys don't.
I think the world of FM is probably one of the funnest jobs and the least funnest jobs you could ever have in your life. It's just all how you you put yourself into it, but I can say that from one day to the next, they're never the same. I mean, sometimes they seem like they are, but there's always something that pops up. You're just never going to know what's going to happen. I mean, all of a sudden you'll have a snake in your building or a turtle, or, you know, I've got all kinds of pictures of just the crazy stuff. And I should have been writing a book about all just the wild things that happen in IFMA. I mean, just about everything you can think of has probably happened. You know, I was going to say just kind of a really strange story about one of the worst things that ever happened to me. And it wasn't when I was actually working for Children International, where I've been for 30 years. I think one of the worst things I've ever did, but it turned out to be another one, kind of like Becky's story about they didn't get mad about it at all. I used to, for 2 years, I got to be the assistant to the director of stadium operations at Arrowhead Stadium during game day. And I don't know if anybody remembers, but there was a game where Lamar, it was in the papers, it was on the news, where Lamar Hunt's car got towed. And I was the person that ordered that car to be towed. It was a rental vehicle out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. No one knew that it was his car because he didn't put his credentials on the dash. They were in his briefcase and he carried them inside with him. And it was sitting in a reserved parking lot right next to the stadium where it wasn't supposed to be. And we towed it out to what they call L40, as far out as it goes. They put him out there in the corner. Halftime comes and Lamar wants to leave. And all of a sudden Lamar's standing out on the sidewalk trying to find his car. And they start screaming on the radio, "Where's Lamar's car? Where's that car we towed off?" And I had to walk out there and tell Lamar Hunt that I towed his car off. And he looked at me and he says, "You don't have to apologize to me. You were just doing your job." He goes, "I was the one that didn't put my credential on the dashboard and you did your job." He shook my hand, said, "Thanks." We got his car back up there. So, you know, it's being open and honest and admitting when you make a mistake. It's you know, it's all about part of the job. And that's just kind of, I guess, one of the oddest. And for a while I felt I was like, you know, running around trying to get outside to the stadium. My stomach was hurting so bad I thought for sure I was going to get killed. But it's been a fun time being in IFMA.
It can be fun. It can be fun, especially with this group. Just like Rose said, we do work hard, but we have a lot of fun too, and we support each other. So, okay, with that, thank you all very, very much. And I will see you guys tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye, guys.
everyone.
Good luck.
Thank you, students.
Bye.
Hang in there.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
I leave here. I can't find my mouse. It parts me.
Lower right, leave.